Hello and welcome to my first impressions and overall review of a game which I purchased very recently, Assetto Corsa. Now it needs to be noted straight off the bat that this is not a review for the Xbox version, this is purely for the PS4. I have not played the Xbox version, so I cannot say how good or bad that game is. This is just for the PlayStation console version, so you do need to bear that in mind. Now, this game, for me, has no expectations. It's an unknown quantity, going up against some very well-established and very strong rivals. Gran Turismo, Forza, Drive Club, Project Cars, and others are already very, very good driving games. Some are more leaning towards arcade, some are leaning more towards sim, but all of them are good. This game is entering a very competitive category with very little to go on. This game is, as I said, an unknown quantity. It could be good, it could be awful. So, the question is, what does it turn out to be like? Well, I had the opportunity to drive a few different cars, having purchased the game on a few different tracks and a few different racing scenarios, mess around with the settings a bit and get an overall feel of the game in a number of different menus, tracks, cars, etc. Now first of all, I'll talk graphics. I have to say, it's not impressive at all. In fact, this game is disappointing in terms of graphics. The graphics on this game could easily be mistaken for a PS3 game, if not under par, compared to some PS3 games. Gran Turismo 6, for instance, has superior graphics to this game easily. The colours are too bright, the detailing is too abstract, it almost makes the cars look almost cartoonish. The camera position, when you're, especially in chase cam, is too fixed to the car. There's almost no movement at all, which gives a very awkward bobblehead kind of motion to the car's steering. And it just doesn't work. It doesn't look right, and it doesn't look finished. This game looks like a demo or a beta version, and that's really disappointing. Not all too surprising, considering that it's a brand new name on the market, but at the same time, you would have thought they'd have put a bit more effort into it, considering the kind of stuff it has to go up against. So overall, for the graphics, for the look overall, I'm really not impressed. So that wasn't a great start. What about how the cars drive? Because of course that is a hugely important aspect of any driving game, as the term driving implies. And although the settings are more than in-depth enough, you do have some controls which are pretty good. I would say, in fact, that some of the controls that you have options to use are controls that should be on games like Gran Turismo. For instance, you can turn the traction control on and off while you're driving the car with the use of a button. You can move the sensitivity of the braking more towards the front of the car or the rear as you're driving. That's cool. Stuff like that is a good feature. But the overall steering of the vehicle, the control of the cars, it just lacks depth. The cars are only cars in the vaguest sense. It feels almost like you're driving remote control cars. Cars which are much more street level, like the BMW M3 for instance, feel okay. They feel too heavy, but they feel okay, not awful. I've certainly driven worse. The race cars, though, are another thing altogether. In my time driving the SGC P45 race car and the Huracan GT3, they are awful to drive as soon as you turn traction control off. With traction control on, which no pro would ever want to do, yes, they can pull off the line well, they can take corners reasonably well, but as soon as you turn that traction control off, the cars become so twitchy it is ridiculous. And I don't mean twitchy in terms of steering. The steering is actually heavy on the cars, too heavy in fact. The way in which they're twitchy is with the throttle. If you turn traction control off, it was almost impossible for me to get off the line without wheel spinning. And as soon as you start to wheel spin on this game, you cannot save it. As soon as you lose grip on the rear tyres, forget trying to save the car, you will end up crashing into the wall or going off track. That's just the way it is. Once you lose grip in the car, forget it. That is not realistic. And it's not fun. But at the same time, it doesn't feel as realistic as something like Project Cars, because I can understand why that kind of simulation would be annoying. Personally, I don't like 100% pure sims as much. I like fun as well as realism. Project Cars, though, has the feeling that you can work up to this level of realism and it will be rewarding because of it. Assetto Corsa doesn't have that depth, it just feels annoying. So, again, disappointing. What about overall gameplay? Well, I have to say, for the game as a whole, it still doesn't look finished, much with the graphics in general. The car sounds are passable, kind of generic, but passable. The overall feel of the game is, I would say, shallow. It doesn't feel like there's much to it. The career mode doesn't feel large in particular. The challenges feel, again, not particularly in-depth. And it feels like a game which is almost trying to ape other games rather than being its own thing. And that's kind of a shame, because every racing game has the potential to bring something new to the table, and many racing games have done that. Games like Test Drive Unlimited, Project Gotham, Drive Club, they are very unique games within the driving genre. This just doesn't feel unique, it feels so generic that it feels like everything, but at the same time, nothing. And that's a real shame, because the game has no character. Overall, would I recommend getting this game? Well, doubtless down the line they will probably provide updates for the game, so if you are interested in getting it, and you don't really care how good or bad it is, then I would at the very least recommend just holding off a little bit. Wait until the game gets a bit cheaper, wait until they've maybe released a patch or a couple of updates to improve things, which they will doubtless have to, if they want to sell games, that is. But for now, it's just not good enough. It feels like an unfinished game. If you want something realistic on the PS4, for instance, just get Project Cars. It's a better game in every way. If you want a better all-round car game in a broader sense, you're better off just waiting for Gran Turismo Sport, which is what I'm going to do. And the ultimate question for me is, had I known what I know now before buying the game, would I still buy it? That's the crucial question. And in the case of Assetto Corsa, the answer is no. So that's it overall for my initial thoughts and review, at least of the release spec of the game. Obviously updates could radically change it, but that's my opinion of it for now at least. And that's it overall for this particular review. So if you'd like to see other reviews of games in the racing genre and some others as well, be sure to check those out on the channel. And if you enjoyed this content and would like more like it in the future as soon as it's released, be sure to slap subscribe down below for that. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.